All right, welcome to another Derby Open Source Office Hours. It is April 8th, 10 a.m. on the West Coast, 8 p.m. over there, right?
Yep.
All right, so let's kick it off like we normally do with some announcements. I've been working on a redesign of the Derby site and the docs, mostly a visual refresh, but also kind of trying to put stuff into place so that we can add more content with a consistent style. One of the designers at Lever, John Lorenz, has been helping with the design of that. So yeah, I was thinking I could actually show it off real quick. Let's see here. So I'm going to share my screen. All right. Can you guys see that?
Yep.
So the idea I was thinking is I'd have some embedded examples. Like this is the chart example, but sort of simplified. You can't add more than 12 here. But it is Derby powered, so anybody also looking at the page would see that. And so this is, the thing about real-time collaboration, you can just kind of get a sense for the fact that you're playing or that you're collaborating with other people. Then this is something I had an idea for. I'm not quite convinced on the execution, but it's a live editable template, and it just loops over the same data as these bars. So people can play with the templating, and the idea is to communicate. And I don't know if I should like label these somehow, but the fact that this is browser rendered, mobile rendered, and you can render it to emails, right? Sorry. Because you have the server-side rendering, you can render on any of these devices effectively. I'm doing the inline styling because that way people can play with it, right? Like they can make the border, or it's using bound values to the styles as well. So yeah, I'm not 100% convinced on it, like how much to put in here, right? Because it's kind of a lot to look at. But yeah, that's the idea so far. And then just kind of simplifying some of this other stuff, and maybe eventually we'll have demos here. But that's that. Then we just have some new styling for the docs. Just kind of a visual refresh. So yeah, it's kind of where it's at right now. These examples are actually iframes loading new examples from the Derby examples, mostly just because it's easier for me to deploy that way. So I'll be pushing out a new Derby example as well. What do you guys think?
I think it looks a lot better than what we have right now. With examples like the people can make some stuff on the start with like try to change something and see what happens.
Yeah, looks great.
Cool. Well, yeah, hopefully it'll be up today. And let's think. Yeah, there shouldn't be much stopping me. And then more plans are to start working on the guides. So just more longer form explanations on topics. They might be like sort of tutorial-like, but more like the place to do in-depth explanations of certain things that people constantly run into.
I think probably in future, I'm not sure, we probably need to do something like the lessons, maybe something like that, from the easiest things to the harder things, like to build some simple app, maybe from definitions, making controller, this stuff, to the complete app. Like, some lessons for CSS or JavaScript, and it takes like from step to the bigger stuff. Maybe something like that in future.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, yeah, besides the guides, we should also have just like a getting started tutorial. Like the getting started page just tells you a couple ways that you can get some example up and running or like get a blank slate. But I've looked at a lot of the other framework documentation to see what people are doing and what looks the best. And I think, yeah, having a tutorial that you don't know anything, you can just read it and try it, and at the end of it, you feel like, hey, I made a little app, or I made something I understand now, like at least what Derby is, or what it's going to look like when I try to use it in my big app. I think that's definitely something we'll be doing soon.
Yeah.
I had an interesting chat with somebody from Meteor actually about their experience writing tutorials or the perspective of Meteor and them taking a closer look at Derby. And it's interesting that they see as well that for Meteor they're trying to get people like really beginners or anybody to just like make something quickly, right? Like they're mostly geared towards like very quickly building something, and Derby is much more geared towards building a larger, more complex app. So it's slower to get started with Derby, or I mean, we can have to try new things to get people, that are just starting out further, because it's kind of hard to be like, here's a complex example, like understand the example and the framework that makes that complex thing easier to deal with. So we have kind of the opposite problem of Meteor, because they're actually finding that it's difficult. A lot of people have difficulty making modular code or reusing their code that they're writing on top of Meteor. So like people can get started fast, but then they can't go very as advanced or very far. So it'll make it interesting to, I think it's interesting that we're covering two different parts of the market, I guess you could say. And make it interesting to try to make the documentation that.
Well, actually, I think that Meteor doesn't have the components-oriented architecture at all for now. Well, at least it's not their mainstream solution that they are telling everyone to use to structure their application.
Right.
Because when I remember that you posted some link into Gitter about something related to Meteor.
Right.
Like someone was comparing like Meteor to other real-time frameworks and was telling that like Meteor is way better than anything else. But then on the bottom there was a guy. The first comment was that like, hey guys, like there is no component structure in Meteor. How can we write a component-oriented architecture if you just don't have such a concept in Meteor? So like, of course, like after that, there is another guy who answered him that like, I have a blog post where I wrote about how you can make the components working in Meteor, but it's not like, it's not streamlined at all, and people have to find their own ways to make the components work in Meteor. They don't have it as a usual way of architecture.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think that the component centric view that Derby has is one of the main reasons why it's so powerful for complex apps, right? Because when you're trying to build something complex, build it out of smaller modular pieces. It's the way to manage that complexity, and that's central, and I do think it will pay off. I think one thing I've noticed even for myself, like learning over these years, that knowing what to put into a component is always a challenge. Like, or it's something that gets easier with time and the more components you make, but just knowing where to draw the lines, like what are the boundaries of this component versus that one. You know, should I put these 3 different things into one component or making 3 different ones? And it generally depends on the use case, and like, because you can abstract at the view layer or at the model layer or the controller, you can. I've sometimes found myself like thinking in circles about how I'm going to organize stuff. So I think when we write the guides, I want to spend a lot of energy on just components, like the philosophies, the best practices, the patterns, even the ways to like practice or learn. I found that in general I'll make a more complex thing. Like if I don't know exactly how I'm going to build something, I'll make it complex. I'll just put everything into one component, and then when I realize, hey, like this piece is actually like all I need to do is pass in this one attribute or this one binding, and then move the view out, and I can use this in this other place that I want to use, have a similar thing, and I start splitting it up from there, and that works for me. I don't know. I'm sure there's like other ways people figure out how to design their components. So.
Yeah, there is like an important concept when you of different ways of components to communicate with each other. So when you are writing like this documentation, you should point that one way is you can communicate through the events layer. So you can emit some event from one component and you can catch it from another component, which is like one of the main things that they communicate with each other. Another way is through the aliases, when you just set one component, make it to be, give it some alias, and then using this alias you can access some of its methods, right, from another component. And like another way of this, one of the questions that I asked when Nate was here last time about this communication, when you can actually pass some of the things from the controller. Using the model, you can pass something from the controller by accessing it from $controller dot and something from the methods of the controller.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So like those various ways like to communicate, like, and actually those are like the key features that are like, they're the key stuff which is very important to understand the Derby on the rockstar level. So like if you know all of this, how to work with it, with those different ways to plug in components together to make them talk to each other, then you can build the perfect architecture.
Yeah, I really agree. And being fluent in those really helps when you're building a page and trying to design the components, knowing how you'll be able to get information in and out of them. depending, and there's definitely some patterns, like when users do certain types of things, right, then you want to, like, maybe your component is more natural to use events or just data bindings, but like we found, when you're sort of doing the meta programming, like rendering dynamically generated views, then you like want to maybe do yet another thing. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and the guide for components will probably be maybe there'll be multiple ones. I don't know. It'll probably be like the longest. Well, the other thing that's probably next, like that's probably top priority. So actually, what I'm doing after I ship the Derby redesign this month is working on these guides. So I'm actually working on prioritizing the content that I want to write first, and I think the components, I should have this in the hackpad too. Also reactive functions, I think, just dealing with data. Let's see, where is it? Reactive functions are like their own topic, but they kind of, they're like a nice function, but I think the deeper issue is kind of how do you format or prepare your data for rendering. So maybe I'll come up with like a better topic to cover it. But I saw an article on, maybe I should share this in Gitter too, on React, and they called them container components. Here it is. Container components. Get in the chat here. In the Gitter. In the notes. This is sort of like Derby's pages, where we encourage people to like do your data fetching and subscribing in the page and manage through the routes, and then pass that stuff into your components on the page. And so whenever you need to get new data, I mean, you can do it inside a regular component, but as they're describing, like the benefits of decoupling the data preparation from the use of the data are that you can move faster with like rendering different, updating the components that you make use of the data. They generally change faster than anything that just gets the data. So I thought that was an interesting article.
Yeah, well, we have a concept of like modules for the data fetching, where you write all of your data fetching into separate modules that are plugged into Derby router. Yeah. And then when you describe that you want some kind of a route, you just enumerate all of those modules that you want. You just list the modules that you want to execute before the rendering. And they inside of the module there are two sections, load and setup. In load we load all of the subscriptions that we're going to subscribe to. Then in setup all the references are being set up into the global namespace, like into the page. And that's it. It's basically like Arthur made an architecture with the dependency injections, where it automatically figures out which component is dependent on some different one, and you can make so that like friends component is dependent on the user component, and the subscriptions are going to be layer by layer. So it is going to structure the tree structure, which is going to lay all of those different subscriptions on each row of the tree, and it's going to subscribe to everything wave by wave by automatically understanding what is dependent on what other things.
Nice.
So this is actually working pretty good right now. We have already tested it on one of our real projects. So yeah, this is one way to solve the data preparation problem and make it reusable.
Nice. Sounds pretty cool. Yeah. All right. Well, why don't we move into questions? So I've taken a couple notes on some bugs I think we ran into. One of them I need to actually try to make a standalone reproduction, which I just haven't had time to do yet. So I'll probably save it for next week when Nate's back and have a reproduction case to go over. Maybe try to debug it some more. Another one is something, though I did want to bring up. We've been noticing that like certain model set operations, if you're using callbacks on them, are sometimes not getting called. And we think it's something inside Share where it's somehow wrongly deciding that certain documents don't need to have operations published to them anymore. So something with a queue, operation queue or something. We're looking at it, and it's affecting a couple areas of our app. It happens very seldomly in our task queue. So it's not like crashing anything, it's just holding things up, and then we have to go, we have something that lets us know if something's stuck. And then it's also just came up randomly in like our backend administration app. So we have a clear reproduction case. So we're gonna try to fix that, but it's definitely shouldn't be happening. But I thought I'd let people know in case. Also, I came across this HTML import keyword. Have you guys seen that before? Apparently it's been around for
HTML import?
Yeah, it's like it's like a new web standard that lets you kind of include.
Oh. Yeah. It comes along with the HTML components and HTML hidden DOM tree.
Yeah.
Or shadow DOM. And HTML import is one of those new features.
And I think it might help the Derby standalone. Like if you want to do it, like write separate template files right by hand, it might make that a little bit nicer. But I haven't tried it yet.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, but not all of the browsers support it, of course.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
So everyone is using polyfills to make the HTML imports working, like in the project Polymer by Google. Like the project Polymer is basically just a set of polyfills. Well, they have a custom, like a pretty big structure, and the base of their project is this set of polyfills which allow you to have the shadow DOM, the HTML import, and like HTML components standards supported in older browsers up to like Explorer 9 or something like this. And on top of this polyfills layer, they actually structure their API that helps you to write the HTML components more easily.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like without any polyfills, we can use it, but maybe in a year or so.
Right. All right. So Eugen, you said you
Yeah,
had.
I think it's the questions from the notepad is the same thing. So the Met tried to use like some JSON object and use it like option for template. Something like I'll send it now. Template object and yeah. Try to use something like this, and then in the data it's a simple JSON object, and then when he tries to use object like the value object, and then the key, when he tried to use it like a string key in the brackets, it's okay. But when he used it like object and in the brackets some value from array, it not works for him.
You mean not the object by attribute? You mean with the @ sign? So when he uses @ object,
Git
and when he uses
how he wrote it.
sharp object.
You can show. You can see it. Like it was few days ago. You can see it in Git. He sent a big message how it works for him.
Yeah, I think I'm pasting
It's
it.
something with bindings, I think. I'm not sure. The solution that I said him uses data with the with, and then it works. So he not sending the data in the component, but he's using it from outside, something like this.
So it's the problem with the attributes. Attributes are not being passed properly into the component, inside the component.
Maybe something like this, yeah.
So he tries to pass the policy as an argument, or attribute, right?
Yep.
How's it called? Get attribute or get argument in Derby? I don't remember. So this @ policy is not working, but the
string value of key is
yeah. So
it's something strange.
Yeah, something with the arrays binding.
Maybe it's not array; it's an object. Or maybe array. It's an object.
Oh,
on
yes,
top, the screen is.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's an object.
Policy data.
Kind of copy the example into the notes so you can kind of. And then you said. So I don't really see. So inside the template, we can find a partial view is just called from the index, and passing an attribute called policy, just JSON. But I'm not sure how he's passing. Oh, I see.
You're
saying you suggested use the with thing.
Yep.
So that it would just be available inside there.
Yep, and it works for him.
I think there was some kind of a fix recently in Derby, maybe about this exact thing, when someone added the update indices when the reference is created inside of the set attribute function in components.
Yeah, could be. I'm trying to find also the standalone examples. So I have one about passing in. I wonder if we can reproduce this here.
What the hell?
So I think
There was this thing, this pull request that Nate merged recently. Maybe this was the fix. Nate merged it like 20 days ago.
oops, why did that?
Maybe Matt just using the old version. I'm not sure.
This is the thing I'm.
Updating the system.
But this was a fix for when you pass attributes which are arrays, which are array items. And the question from Matt Byrne was about the passing a JSON object, not an array.
Yeah.
So it must be some different problem, some different bug.
Oh, but he's doing it in to a view partial. So if I say.
Yeah, it's a template partial.
So this is like test. So here is test. I'm able to I updated that code mirror example. I'm able to just pass in options. I don't know if there's like model.set page.json. Seems to work. Yeah, I don't know, maybe I'm not sure I see the exact problem. At least the way I think I'm reproducing it. But let's move on to. I asked him in Gitter to maybe make similar, like a standalone example that would highlight, like if he could reproduce the way he was doing it. That might help. unless you guys see what I tried to do with the test view in that standalone example. And if I'm not, I feel like I'm trying to reproduce the way he did it, but maybe I don't understand. Let me plug in some power. All right, well, do we want to move on to the styles and components question that was also...
Yeah, we already, Pavel already said it that he has no time to fix it.
Actually, I just made the update.
You just...
Yeah, I just made an update to the pull request that I had
So
for
we need
Derby
to
stylus.
merge.
Okay.
But are we going to merge it, or we're going to wait until the Nate is here?
Yeah, we'll probably wait till Nate's here to go over it again. I know he has some thoughts, but I think maybe what we should do is let's mark this as something to bring up next week so we can go over it with him.
Yep.
And then, because like you said, you came up with a way around, like last week you explained how you got around the limitation that we were facing.
Yep.
So we can just go over that with Nate, and then hopefully merge that in soon. Yeah. Well, what do you guys think? Do you have anything else we should cover today?
There was some question by Madbron about this table component that I talked about last week.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I think I forgot to answer him on Gitter. But it's strange that it doesn't work, because we tried it on our another project just recently. Eugene tried it, and it worked fine. Maybe it was just some, I don't know, some bug. So you tried it, right, Eugene?
About what you're saying about?
About the table, the scrollable table component.
Yeah, it works for me. I worked yesterday with it, and it works with some bug, but it works. Like it's not scrolling multi-lines ahead. Right. Yeah, we need to fix it, and but another stuff it works well. Scrollable table is okay.
Okay. So, Matteo, when you're going to look the office hours, write us to Gitter some more description about what you were trying to do.
Yeah, and I think this is again the real
I think
thing we need the examples, right? We need either a small app with Derby Mini, the generator Mini.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we have this project, right?
I can show you what I did right now. I'm not sure how it will seem. I did it in Jade right now, the example, but it works fine for me with his server. Not sure. I will send you right now the code, I think. I did the view with this stuff. It's an array with keys and object with data, and then I used it. I'm not sure if it will Yeah, I think it's good. I did something like this, and I saw the array and object well, and every element I saw well, and object with string as key works well too. I'm not sure, maybe some bug format, maybe old version of Derby, but it works well for me right now.
Mm-hmm. He was also, I think, he had also the lm, like this sharp lm. He used it as an object, and he was calling like sharp lm dot key or something like this. Maybe.
No,
Okay.
he used it without two.
Uh-huh.
It's the two ways he tried to use.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, he used it and just as p name, and p dot name,
Yeah.
and both ways did not work for him.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Yeah, that's strange.
For me, it works right now well. Not sure what the problem with his code.
Maybe he is passing it in some way like from another component. So there is like one component, and then he has another component inside of it, and then another component inside of it, and he passes this variable from one component to another component to another component.
But
And
why it
gets
works
screwed
with
up in
string
some
case
stage.
then?
Yeah.
The data is displaying with string case, but not displaying with like some valuable case.
Yeah,
understand the
variable key.
problem.
Something with a variable key.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I think what he needs to do, he is not showing for us the JSON stringify object. Maybe some stringify bug, or we can see what's an object inside that his template. Maybe some like the object that he sent to template is not proper.
It's not the same as he's thinking.
Inside. Yeah, maybe he's like wrong inside. I don't know, but it's but he's using a key string. It's okay. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's only, we'll only know if he provides us some test case like Ian suggested
More information.
on something like Derby standalone. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I like fork this thing. 'Cause I see now, I understand. All right. I'm making a standalone example, I guess. So, who has values? Each array has all right. So I think I have Actually, I was able to reproduce it. Really? Oh, it's options. All right. To reproduce it, here's the standalone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wonder what is up with that. Might be a bindings bug indeed. I'm going to replace all these.
Yeah, and it works for you too, yeah? It works well.
Yeah. All right. Well, at least we have a reproduction case. I will, yeah, we can show Nate, maybe make an issue out of it.
Maybe the Met answers something to us about it.
I'm just going to go ahead and open an issue. GitHub, Derby. All right. Submitted. All right. Well, it's about time. We got a good an issue out of that reproduction case. That's good. Shall we call it for this week?
Yep.
No more.
Yeah, we have plenty of stuff to discuss next week when the Nate is back.
Oh yeah, we'll serve it up to him. I'll tell him to be get ready when he gets back.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
You're returning from the rest and here a lot of questions and bugs found.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, then I guess we'll see you guys next week, and
Yeah.
I'll send out a message to the list and Gitter when I deploy the new site. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
All right.
Great. Okay. Bye, Ian.
Bye.
See you guys later.